Hi, my friends. We are reading the next part of The One and Only Bob. In the beginning, we're kind of just learning about Bob's life. It's sort of a recap of The One and Only Ivan, and we know that he is living with Julia, and he got to talk about how he and Ivan became friends, and that's how we're sort of continuing right now. We are on a chapter called The Amazing History of Man's Best Friend. Before long, me and Ivan were best buddies. We're an unlikely pair, sure. Ivan's calm and serene, a philosopher, an artist. I wish I could be more like that. No one's ever accused me of being level-headed. Hot-headed, sure. And I can't talk pretty like Ivan can. I'm a street dog, after all. I'm proud of it. Still, we clicked in a way I never had with humans. Man's best friend? No way. Gorilla's best friend? You bet. Seems to me the first time I ever heard that phrase, man's best friend, was while I was watching TV with Ivan. Back in the day, Ivan had this little television, and we watched a lot of stuff together. Old movies, westerns, cartoons, you name it. Poor guy was stuck in a cage, didn't have a lot else to do except throw meatballs at gaping humans. Remember, meatballs are dried up poop that Ivan throws at people. Anyway, me and Ivan, big fans of the tube. Cat food commercials, pro bowling, dancing with the stars. What's not to like? Once we watched this special on the Nature Channel. It was called The Amazing History of Man's Best Friend. Show was all about famous dogs. There were rescue dogs and therapy dogs and war dogs and fire dogs and movie dogs and this dogs and that dogs. And between you and me, most of them were just plain overachievers. Then they got to this dog named Hatch something or other. Hatchet Toe, maybe? Seemed his owner died. For the record, I object the word owner, but we'll set that aside for now. And Hatch something or other sat around for over 9 years in the same spot at the same train station day after day waiting for him to return. Thing is, the narrator guy was blabbing on and on about this dog, really over-the-top stuff. How loyal, how loving, break out the Kleenex, blah, 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 where, man's best friend. They made a statue of this dog. I kid you not. A statue of the dog who sat around 9 years waiting for a dead guy. This chapter is called In My Opinion. That dog was a ninny, a numbskull, a nincompoop. This chapter is called I'm Yours. Let me tell you about being man's best friend. Being man's best friend can mean a lot of things. Companionship, belly rubs, tennis balls, but it can also mean a dark, endless highway and an open truck window. It can mean the smell of the wet wind as hands grab the box you're in with your brothers and sisters and you go sailing into the unkind night. And still, crazy as it sounds, you're thinking, but I'm yours, I'm yours, I'm yours. This chapter's called No One. That's what being man's best friend can get you. A black highway, an empty box, and no one in the world but you. Early days. I don't remember much about my early puppy days. It was 3 years ago, but sometimes it feels like 300. Mostly I recall fighting with my sibs for the primo meat spot. Lots of squirming and squeaking, everything soft and milk-smelling and movable, like we were one big, complicated animal. I never met my dad, and my mom didn't say much about him except that he was trouble. Mom had a beautiful fawn coat, chihuahua, some this, some that, nice messy bloodline. Butts rule. Mom crooned to us, told us stories, laid down the law. I wonder if she knew she didn't have much time to prepare us for the world. We were born in a dark place, probably under some porch stairs, I suspect, since I remember the sound of boots plodding up and down, the biting and ugly smell of human feet. They called my mom Rio, and they fed her most days, though sometimes she had to fend for herself. She never showed fear toward them, or respect, indifference, I guess you could say, unless they tried to handle one of us. She growled then, hoping to make it clear that we were hers and hers alone. I myself got picked up a couple times. The hands reached in, grabbed. They were rough and smelled of strange scents, bitter and meaty. My mom's growl made me fearless, and I wriggled and yipped. The hands shoved me back to the warm place where I could sleep and drink and dream in safety. Still, I understood in my simple puppy way that dogs belonged to humans, and that was how it would always be. Boss. My mom wasn't much for names. She had a lot of litters. I guess she'd run out of ideas. My brother, first, was Natch, the firstborn. Runt, my youngest bro, was the last. Dot had a little spot on her back, and Yip was always complaining. I was rowdy, goes without saying, and that left my oldest sister. We called her Boss. Boss was mean and small, with a distinctive sharp-sounding bark. She could outmaneuver any of us to the best spot for dining. I admired her grit, even if she did get on my nerves. When we got a bit older, less blind, more cocky, I fought her off occasionally, but mostly Boss won. She was fearless, that pup. Alone. The truck happened without warning one night. They threw us in a box, left my mom behind. I can still hear her frantic howls. I landed in a muddy ditch. It was a cloudy night, nearly freezing. Even the moon had abandoned me. And the smells, everything so wild and unknown. Animals with big paws and bigger appetites. Birds that swooped in to kill, death and life all mixed up together. I searched for my siblings until the truth became clear. I was utterly alone. Cars. The next morning I began my slow journey, moving through the tall, wet grass, my limbs stiff from the cold. Now and then I'd drink from a mud puddle or gnaw on some grass. By evening I was wobbly with hunger and thirst. I followed the highway. Every time a four-wheeled creature roared by, I froze in fear. And yet, and this is what slays me, I knew that cars meant humans, and humans meant the possibility of living just as much as they meant the possibility of dying. The owl. Darkness had fallen when it came out of nowhere. The owl. A shadow in a shadow. They don't make a sound, you know. Not a sound. It's quite impressive when you think about it. I have a little owl picture here for you. Luck. Just as her talons, those marvelous talons, raked my fur, I caught my right foot in a small hole and stumbled. If she'd gotten hold of my body, I wouldn't be here. But all she managed to do was grab my tail. Only time in my life I've regretted my handsome hindquarters. I was airborne, hanging upside down, dizzy and dazed, and just crazy enough to think, hey, I'm actually flying, before the terror hit full force. I caught a whiff of other animals below. Later I found out they were pocket gophers, but back then I just knew I was smelling something completely foreign. The owl must have decided the gophers would make a more satisfying meal. She let loose her grip, and I plummeted to the earth. More luck. Maybe it was my puppy fat or my soft bones or my incredible good fortune, but I didn't die. Didn't even break anything. I'd flown twice in my short life and lived to tell the tale. Will. I found a small hollow at the base of a fallen tree, poked my nose in and got a swat and hiss from a grouchy raccoon. Kept going, waddling, whimpering. Lights ahead, new strange smells. Kept going, kept going. It's amazing how much the sheer will not to die can keep you moving. Exit 8. I finally came to a small road curving off the main highway. Exit 8 turned out to be. A big billboard overhead had a picture of a terrifying animal on it. We know what animal that is now. Of course, I didn't know what a billboard was. Didn't know that the scary animal was a gorilla, let alone that he would become my dearest friend. But something told me to follow that off-ramp. And eventually, I ended up at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan. All right, that's all for today. Thanks for joining me.